Well, I guess you can probably just then upload the video once it's done.
Guys, I think we're live.
No?
We are now live. Oh gosh. Well, how are you for time, guys?
It's
Mm,
Friday and I have nothing to do, so
Roya, Yurii?
yes.
That's fine.
Okay. Well, everybody who's now joining us live, my sincere apologies. We have had some massive technical difficulties here, and we thought we were live for about 25 minutes before we realized we weren't. And the point in the conversation that we got to was literally all of us realizing that some of the technologies that our guests today are working to bring to life would in fact be very real solutions to the problem that I've just experienced. So, without further ado, let's kick off the top of the show again. We've got three fantastic guests with us today from the Human Computer Interaction Lab. Kenny Hahn, Yurii Vasylkiv, and Roya Lotfi. Thank you very much all for joining us. And
hello.
so, off the top of the show, as is typical fashion, I'm going to introduce the show, and then we're going to turn to each of our panelists for a moment to hear about their research and the work that they've been doing at the lab. So, Circle 1. My name is John Swiston. I am the founder of a systems integration company called Oxesis. And our company was founded on a bet. And that bet was the future of work would include more people who were able to be their own boss, work from where they want, how they want, on what they want, when they want, etc. And that to me seems like a future we thought was a bit of a stretch, but all of a sudden seems to have been put on fast forward. So a lot of the things that we kind of projected or predicted would begin to occur 3-4 years from now, all of a sudden seem to have been put into overdrive, and a lot of those things are happening much more quickly. So we figured we'd throw our hat in the ring with a bit of a media channel and get involved in the communication, and decided we were going to launch a live stream. We didn't realize how difficult it was going to be when we decided to do it, and wow, has it been a learning experience. But it's been a hoot. We've learned a lot from some fantastic guests like the ones we have here with us. And the name of the show is Circle 1, The Future of Work and Leadership. And on the show, we would like to discuss what the future of working life, career, professional life, industry, and leadership looks like. And our thesis here at Oxesis, the Oxesis thesis, is that there's a lot of great things within our conception of working life, career, and those traditional ideas that we have about our jobs and making a living. And so we like the name Square One, but Square One typically means to take a project that's no good, scrap it, and start again from square one. And so we think there's a lot of great things there in our traditional conception of work, and that maybe we just need to reimagine the shape. Circle 1. Welcome, everyone. And so now we will turn to our fascinating panelists, and what do you know? We've already had 25 minutes of practice, so we're going to be awesome at this the second time around. Without further ado, I'd like to turn it to my good friend Kenny Hahn, who's recently graduated from the master's program. Kenny, please take it away and enlighten us as to what you've been up to over there.
Sure. My name is Kenny, and thanks for the introduction, John. I'm a recent grad. I defended my thesis in January, and now I've been just working on some lab stuff until recently. I am now a senior. I will be starting as a senior software developer for a company called Farmer's Edge. So my thesis, my entire thesis was working on exploring the use of technology to help with neonatal resuscitation. Neonatal resuscitation is a big procedure, but it's done in like very, very quickly, very fast. So with the big procedure, it's split into a lot of steps, and my work looked into one specific step and then see if we are able to create a training or a practice program out of it using the technology that we have today. The technologies that I've leveraged in my work include augmented reality using the HoloLens, and with a little bit of different gadgets such as different gadgets such as a fidget, not the spinner, but like but some sensors from the company Fidget. We've connected it to a ventilator, and then used it to send data to the HoloLens. The procedure that I looked at is called pure pressure ventilation, or bag and mask ventilation, and what that is for a minute or a little bit more than a minute. It cycles in during the procedure. A neonatologist, a doctor, has to perform ventilation to a baby. This procedure is very important because if you and it requires a lot of practice as well, because if you put too much pressure, you have the chance of bursting a baby's lungs. If you put too little pressure, then it's not going to be effective at all in reviving a baby. So my work is to explore a way where medical professionals or healthcare professionals are able to take up this ventilator and practice their skills frequently, so that they don't lose it. Because like research shows that if you don't use a specific skill for a lengthy period of time, you're just going to lose it, right? And in order to practice and then keep things in sync, so it has to be the right amount of pressure, the right amount of timing, and then just gets your internal clock, just keep syncs your internal clock to the procedure. You would want to continuously practice, and that was what we were looking at.
Awesome. It's very fascinating and obviously extremely useful stuff that you're doing. Commend you for the work. We've got a bit of a demo here that might help our viewers at home understand, I guess what you're getting at with the cadence. It sounds like you're saying, it seems to me it must be tough to get an intuitive sense for that proper rhythm, pressure, all the rest of it, right? And so one of the solutions that you developed within your research was designed to help people do exactly that. So can you maybe tell our viewers a little bit at home about what it is they're going to be watching? And I think it's up. So. Wow. My favorite word too, yeah.
Longitudinal studies, and essentially that we found we used this application with both non-healthcare professionals and healthcare professionals, and in both aspects we found we found some limited some difficulties with the apparatus itself, and then I in the end suggested ways on how we can improve this, and what we can do to improve this in order to have a more consistent feel, to have a better experience with this apparatus. And that was the extent of my 2-year research, and yeah, I've also done a couple of helping out with other projects around the lab as well. So that was my main project there.
Awesome. Lots of cool stuff. Thank you very much for sharing. I'd be excited to learn a little bit more about the project, maybe in more detail on another episode. So thank you for sharing. We'll now pass it over to Yurii Vasylkiv. Yurii, would you be so kind as to share with our viewers at home today what you've been working on in the HCI lab?
Yeah, sure. Hi, my name is Yurii Vasylkiv. I came to Canada about 3 years ago, and to get my master's degree in computer science, University of Manitoba. I've been feeling quite nice in here in Canada, like especially summers. So for the past 2 consecutive years, I have been looking at the future of hand gesture interaction and its applicability for the population of older people. Well, if you think gesture interaction might really become a huge thing in the future, when the implementation of things like smart homes, smart grids, and smart cities become a reality, It's already been quite progressive, but we still have some work ahead of us. Gestures are a really cool thing, cool way to interact with the environment. So imagine that you don't need to use tons of remotes, screens, or mice to just control the temperature, or lights, blinds, voice calls, or send messages, and you can do all of that with just just a mid-air hand motion. So think how beneficial this could be to older people. This can essentially increase the level of accessibility at home, so people will, with different abilities, can still live more independently. And the central goal of my research was essentially to look at age-inclusive design, where the related to the age differences act as a foundation of the design. However, there's a little trick comes here that a lot of design thinkers consider age to be the main variable, and attribute people's physical and cognitive capabilities by just age. But it's actually not that simple. There's been a lot of proofs that aging occurs individually, different, and it depends on many factors such as lifestyle, genetics, and other variables that can affect that. So the main outline is that age affects motor abilities differently. Thus, if we have similarly designed gesture interfaces for people of different age, then it might be comfortable for one, but on the other hand, not comfortable for the other one. Just not because only for due to physical capabilities or preferences, but also just matter of personal preference, which just changes as age occurs. So I was trying to actually look at how to see how different those preferences could be between older and younger population in my experiment.
Okay, and Yurii, we talked about maybe getting each of you guys on individually for an episode. I think there's a very nuanced piece of your research that might be fun to even spend a whole episode talking about. And that is if maybe you can lead me here, something to do with machine learning so that the system can learn the gestures which are more preferential to people with varying capability when it comes to gesture. Is that the case?
Yeah. So
I see you rolling your eyes there. I didn't quite get it right, did I?
No. It's quite close. So I mean, of course, this can be a case, but I was rather, looking at just conceptual
Yeah. Yes, of
design.
course. Yeah.
I'm not a specialist in machine learning.
Well, I think it's just exciting to know that the potential application is there, right?
Yes, that's right.
Okay, and so would you mind? I'm going to play a demo here on screen in a moment. Would you mind just letting the viewers at home know what it is that they're seeing on screen?
Yeah. Sure.
Okay, bear with me. Oh, I'll let you know when it's up. Okay, so everybody at home is now watching the GR control demo. And Yurii, take it away. Are you watching the live stream? I think we're about... It's up. We're about 25 seconds delayed, I think. Very cool. And I think we mentioned it on our first take, so I think it's worth mentioning again. I happen to know with 100% certainty that that demo we're watching now was not faked. So all of the stuff that the viewers at home are seeing on the screen, Yurii actually, built this system, programmed the whole thing. Okay, the secret's out. What a hoot it was to work on that project with you, and just awe-inspiring, like absolutely astounding what you built with that system. Very, very cool. And I guess just to explore the potential use case or application, and my joke was, about the technical issues that we faced at the start of the live stream, and Kenny being a live streamer himself, I'm sure with much more experience than I, and doesn't quite experience the same number of technical difficulties that I do. But one of the things I find difficult about live streaming is that there's all these hotkeys, there's all these different applications, there's all these little things that I'm trying to do, and like the metaphors in which I interact with these components is very unintuitive. Like, so I'm pressing hotkeys, I'm clicking between windows, just general computer use I think is kind of unintuitive. Would it be the case that maybe in the future I could wave my hands and I could have some intuitive gestures that would make certain things happen on my computer?
Using all the instruments on a high level where you don't have to deal with all this stuff. It was just, let's say, one wave of your hand, you could actually start the live stream or stop it. Yeah, even now you can, when you look at the coding and software engineering, there's still a lot of majority of people coding low level, sitting there in a computer coding HTML, but there has been a lot of progress in abstracting that away, where we have such cool things like WordPress to design your websites, where you don't have to deal with all that stuff. But imagine,
are you saying one day I'm just going to wave my arms around in the air and I'm going to build a website?
not on a website, of course, but it was just a good example to state about
building a website will one day look like conducting a symphony, perhaps.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, thank you, Yurii. I'd love to dive into it more with you, and I'm excited to turn over now to Roya Lotfi. Something that she's been working on is, I think it would have been very nice to have your device in my ear telling me that something was going wrong. So Roya, can you please take it away and tell our viewers at home what you've been working on?
Hi everyone, I'm Roya. I'm from Iran. I came to Canada about 2 years ago and started my program as research assistant in HCI lab. So my research is about analyzing data and machine learning and signal processing and the use of artificial intelligence in automating eating activities. So what I am focusing on is gathering physiological variables from earable data, which earable data is just an earphone, but it has some more sensors that can capture other physiological variables. So my main focus is on collecting these data and trying to automatically identify when the users are engaging in eating activities. And it has several applications, for example, like helping those with eating disorders or helping older adults to remind them of eating. And yeah, that's about it.
Very cool. And so we've got just a little bit of an image here. So we're going to take a peek at just an image showing Roya's device that she's been working on and some of the intended use case scenarios. Could you maybe tell us a little bit more about the eating scenario, or the mastication detection, I think, as you guys like to call it?
Your jaw movements, and also the audio helps it. So by fusing both audio and jaw motions, we can detect whether a user is like eating and also what they are eating. So we could also design some studies to detect whether it's also possible based on audio and IMU to detect what the user is eating. For example, your face might have different vibration while you're chewing, for example, apple compared to like chips or some soft foods.
Oh my
So
gosh.
the idea is based on like putting the sensor in a place that close to your mouth, so that the changes in your facial muscles can be captured
And I
by the
imagine
device that we have.
the vibration of chewing chips must be very different than
Yeah, exactly.
chewing an apple,
So
and a machine learning classifier can recognize that
yeah, for
difference.
now that's right. For now we only try to focus on detecting eating, but also I ran this quick study and I saw that it's also possible to detect what the user are eating. So it doesn't require, like, for example, capturing video or something. Just by analyzing the audio, it's possible.
That's so amazing. And so there's actually another student from the laboratory. Shout out Zui. And I keep meaning to reach out to Zui to say I'm really hoping to have him on an episode, and maybe even give him a full episode, just me and him, because his project also involves eating. And so maybe I can just ask you a couple questions about maybe future intended use case scenario for your project, Zui, because or sorry, Roya, because Zui's project has maybe made me curious about some things.
Yeah, so his project is mainly focused on detecting eating by a spoon. For example, if the spoon is sedentary and not moving, or while the user is eating. So by how fast you are moving that spoon, it can detect whether you are eating fast or you are eating slow. So it's a little bit different from mine. So mine's not just to detect whether it's fast or not. It's just by detecting eating and what the user is eating and how often do they eat, or how long they spend while eating, and what time of the day is that. But Zoe's is mostly focused on how fast the user is eating, so eating behavior mostly. So for example, are they having a like normal behavior while eating? Are they over consuming? Is it too fast? And yeah, so he's...
So maybe if in a future where those, could you imagine those two devices maybe being combined? And so maybe if your device knows that I'm eating Lucky Charms and Zui's knows that I'm eating the Lucky Charms way too fast, then they both perform some type of output?
Yeah, it can be, for example, for giving outputs, for example, for telling you notifications, for example, you're consuming too much or you're eating too fast, or mostly for people who are having binge eating problems or the eating disorders in general.
That's very interesting. Fascinating stuff. And I think you mentioned something earlier about the accuracy of the device in chewing detection.
Yes, for chewing detection, just detecting, it was like around 97%.
Wow.
Yeah, but for the type of food, it was around 85, 90. So I need to just do more stuff on it to increase the accuracy.
That still sounds unbelievably high for type of food detection.
Yes, actually, I'm also surprised. Like, I never realized that the jaw motions can be used to capture like eating. I mean, I thought there's not much like motions in the jaw while you are consuming your food, but when we run this study, we saw that there is, and also the accuracy of that was even higher than the audio. So
wow, that's amazing.
Yeah, that's possible.
Were you able to find any other results from related works with regards to type of food detection accuracy?
So for type of food, yes, I have seen, but they are mostly focused on audio and image. So what we're doing is utilizing IMU because it's more private. It doesn't capture like participants' audios, and people don't feel that their privacy is at risk. And also the computational it doesn't require much computational power because like the size of the IMU data is much less than the audio data. So there are a number of different benefits and advantages of IMU over audio. So also we are comparing these two modalities and also combining both.
Okay, and I'm trying to prompt you to brag a little bit here. How were your accuracy rates combined with the
97?
But compared to others, has anybody else achieved rates that high for similar devices or approaches?
I have seen with audio 96.
Wow. And
I've seen several works like around 80, but yeah. So our main focus was on IMU. With IMU, we could reach 97% accuracy. But the other works, in other literatures, they have been like 96, 95, but with audio.
Okay.
So.
Wow, that's fascinating. And then in terms of like the current state of accuracy for type of food detection, did you find statistics from other related works with regards to that accuracy?
Yes, but we are using different modalities.
Okay.
We should consider that. So if you're comparing, like, for example, their method to our method, so they're using another device. So for example, with image, they can detect it with 100%, for example. Like, the device is lightweight, you can wear it, and also People in the meantime of the study, they mentioned they even forgot wearing it. So these are all the benefits of the device that we are using. But for example, if you think about if I use a picture, of course I can detect it better. But I want it to be easier for the individuals to use it too.
Excellent.
So,
wow. Fascinating stuff. I really appreciate hearing a little bit more about all of your research projects. And I think there's a couple things, we've got some topics queued up, but there's a couple things that come up as similar between all of your projects. And so I think it might be worth pursuing those just very briefly. The first being that we could talk about each one of your projects for hours and hours and hours, it seems, right? So I'd love to invite you all back on the show at some point in the future. I would really like to get into the habit of doing some one-on-ones so that we can really go deep on some stuff. So please consider this a formal invitation to come back on the show at some time in the future. And then the other one was, and before we actually got streaming, we had circled around this concept of the aging population. And maybe I'll turn it over to Yurii just to share some of those statistics that he had shared previously with regards to the ratio of younger people in the population to older people in the population. And I guess the premise is that we're about to see, or we're on the verge of seeing, a very large shift there. Can you fill us in a little bit, Yurii?
Yeah, so before we started, I mentioned that was about 16% currently, the ratio of older adults to, turns out it's 15.6.
Okay, well, pretty darn close, yeah. And can you define for us, like, how do we define that category? Older adults is?
It's the proportion between, like, if you take the whole population.
But is it like 40 to 70 for age? Like, what's the group?
It's over 65.
Okay, over 65. Okay, so right now it's 16% of the population is over 75?
65 and more.
Okay, and then you're saying that... Sorry,
in less than 2 decades, so I said I was going to be 25. Well, turns out 23. I was also about correct.
Oh, Yurii. If you guys can't tell at home, the folks here are all very much concerned with accuracy.
Yeah. So you can imagine that in 20 years is going to be an increase in almost 10%.
So you're saying it's going to get to 25.6% of the population will be over 65 in how long?
Yeah, in about 20 years from now.
Wow. Okay, and so I guess the hypothesis...
Include newborns?
Yeah, does it?
Does that include like newborns and people that are just born, or are we talking about people who are growing right now, but no one has been giving birth?
I think it means in general. It's the makeup of
percentage of total population.
Yeah.
Okay, so they're taking in the trend of like less people are being born in this generation versus last, blah 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 blah.
Yeah, similar to that.
Yeah, I think I remember now that reading that statistic in your intro, Yurii. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay, and then so just to pull on that string a little more, I guess the hypothesis or the proposition there is that a lot of the technologies that you guys are working on in the lab are the types of technologies that might enable an aging population to interact with computers and devices more seamlessly in a more intuitive fashion, and that might then lessen the burden on the younger population that comes along with caring for an aging population. Am I somewhere close there?
I see. So we are talking about in the independence here. So with this abundance of technologies that are growing year by year, they tend to become more and more sophisticated, right? And when we have older people facing these technologies, some of them just might not be willing to learn that, because if you learn it from scratch, it's quite a lot of stuff. And so thinking through age inclusive design, where we need to tailor at least some aspects of design towards how they think, how they perceive technologies, might actually facilitate adoption of those technologies, so that the bigger rate of people will actually be able to learn and use those technologies, which subsequently will increase their comfort in life and subsequently will increase their independence. Because when let's say your grandmother, you can you can easily call her, make a video call with her anywhere. It's easier. But when you cannot, then you have to go there, look what's going on, and so it essentially takes your time.
Yeah.
And
so if
yes,
instead of having to turn on a device with your finger and click an application and adjust some settings and click a link, you just, you did some very intuitive gesture and then you're video conferencing with your grandchildren.
Because who wants to learn how to use links and all this stuff where there has to be some easier way to do that.
Awesome. Okay. Guys, again, thank you very much for diving in on your research and sharing a bit more with the audience at home. If it's cool with everybody here, I'd like to now dive into a couple topics. And all of you there joining us as panelists, please feel free to let me know if we've got to wrap it up. I propose that we try to go, since we were about a half hour delayed, is everybody okay with maybe going until 1:30 before we wrap? Everyone's cool?
Sure.
Awesome.
Yeah, that's
okay.
fine.
So that leaves us with about 23 minutes. Let's see how far through these topics we can get. We might only get barely into the first one. We'll see. All right. So topic number 1, episode 6, human-computer interaction. As some of you at home may have begun to realize, the 3 students, grad-level students that we're talking to, 2 of them are nearing the completion of their grad program, and 1 has just graduated. And so I'm curious, what does the adjustment from high-level academia to high-level corporate work, if you guys are so choosing to leave academia, maybe I'm assuming here, but how do you guys see that transition? And then I think the addition to this question is, to me, it seems like it would be difficult enough to transition from high-level academia into high-level private sector, or even into government, or any type of more traditional working setup, anything other than academia. But also it seems like academia is changing a lot right now, and the working world the private sector is changing a lot right now. That must be very interesting to be considering that transition in a very tumultuous kind of period of time. And so I think Kenny has now just made that move officially, and so I'd like to throw this one to Kenny to share his thoughts on the topic with us, please. Kenny.
Sure thing. I would say that it comes in 2 phases, actually. The first phase is actually transitioning out and then looking for your next career path. We are, the 3 of us, and anyone else in the HCI lab or anyone else in this field is fortunate enough to be in a field where it's might not be as difficult as other fields to find a career to go into the next career path. And that the first phase is looking. And once you've done to looking, now you have to adjust to something completely different. And it's a different change. It's a change of pace from going from you set your own deadlines, you set your own you set your own goals, you set your own project dates and all of that stuff like that, your presentations. You go from doing all that, where instead of having like a week deadline, you have a 2-year deadline to complete an entire product, right? Or project. I wouldn't say product, because it can become a product. And then and whereas in the actual high level industry world, you have these deadlines you have to adjust to your way of thinking, from thinking I have this much time to do it to I have this much time to do it, you know. And that's the that I would say the biggest, the hardest transition for an academic or a postgraduate student, because they won't have the quick experience from going from undergraduate straight to the industry, whereas they took an extra 2 to 5 years of school, and now they're placed into this high pace, and they might not be able to adjust to it. But on the other hand, if you are able to adjust to it, it should be fine.
Yeah. So Kenny, you're somebody who's had you've had some industry experience. It seems to me that you move back and forth a little bit, and you're currently, I guess, just on the other side of that transition. How are you finding it? Have you found that your prior industry experience has helped?
Absolutely. My prior industry experience gave me like interviewing experience, networking experience as well. So before I'm starting at, like I said earlier, I'm starting as a senior full stack developer at a company called Farmers Edge. Prior to that, I was at Skip the Dishes for about a year, and RBC for a few months as well. So I do have that industrial experience from three completely different types of companies. One is a more Wild West cowboy, slinging code everywhere. One is a more corporate restricted, you have to ask for permission in order to download the tools you need to code type of experience. And I'm not sure about the next one yet, but we'll see what's going to happen. So in my experience, I will probably adjust fairly easier than someone who went straight from academia topic to into the industry. And it depends on your focus as well. And also among that, getting speaking experience as well in both the industry side and the academia side was very, very helpful. And I would actually recommend anyone to take up a topic that they're interested in and practice delivering that topic. And
great advice.
And that will help you go a long way.
Awesome. That's fantastic advice. We're going to be following your career with Farmers Edge with great anticipation. We think you're going to do fantastic, and we've heard fantastic things about Farmers Edge as well. So congratulations on the move, and I'm sure they're going to find themselves extremely lucky to have you. I'd like to kind of maybe turn it to Roya and Yurii to share with us their thoughts. I know that you guys are both approaching, I guess both of you are over the halfway mark when it comes to your master's program. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
How are you feeling as you consider getting to the finish line of that master's program?
I'm quite excited. I'm anticipating that, yeah.
I'm also excited, and especially because I don't have like experience in industry like Kenny, so it's kind of like exciting for me. I would like to just try it and see how it feels like being in a big corporation, that the project is like determined from before and then you're doing a small piece of it. So yeah, I think that's very exciting for me too, and a new experience.
Excellent.
Fortunately, I have got prior experience. It wasn't big corporate. I would say it was on a verge when the company was growing, and I was one of the co-founders, and we were basically creating the company from the scratch, and then I was the core developer, Android developer in that. We, of course, were limited with lots of deadlines because as you grow, this is extremely important phase where you have to meet all the needs of the clients. Where there were times where I just had sleepless nights to make time, while also trying to manage some of my university education. So sometimes I would just prioritize one thing over another. It wasn't full time, but it was more than part time for sure. And then sleep, very, very high level of stress.
So I have a question. I have a question for you all. It seems like you're all in agreement that maybe there's more of an urgency or a sense of urgency with regards to project completion in industry, more than in academia. But then I've got to ask, on the other hand, I know that you all also combat fierce deadlines and have sleepless nights, even when you're just dedicated to your master's study. What's going on, guys?
I think in academia, the deadlines tend to be a bit tentative, but when it comes to the point where you have some conference or some important presentation, that's where deadlines come to place. But when it's internally, they're pretty tentative. But it depends. Your productivity will depend on it. How you set your deadlines correctly. If you miss your deadlines, then you're not as productive as you want. But in terms of when you apply for conference.
Yeah. And so Roya, how do you feel about?
I think the deadlines are long. Like for example, from now until 3 months, I know I have a deadline. So sometimes people get lazy and just don't do anything until the deadline is so close. So maybe it would be better to have like short-term goals and short-term deadlines for ourselves. This is what I learned from the time that I've been in academia. So yeah, the deadlines are so far away, like, but you don't know like what you're doing, or you say, oh, okay, I have enough time. But short-term deadlines that you set for yourself and be committed to do them and deliver them to yourself on time would be much helpful.
Mm-hmm. That's the only way I feel like I can stay productive. It's very, I have to set my long-term deadlines and then break them down into tiny things
Yeah,
and
exactly.
then say, I gotta do that. Like, that's the only way I can
Yeah, and
manage
sometimes
it, so.
initially you don't know how long the job will take. For example, you would say, okay, I can finish it in 1 week. And you start 1 week before the deadline. Then you realize, no, it needs like 1 month. So yeah, that's the time that we have, like we have to stay awake at night. We have to just keep working. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, something I've noticed in industry, especially when it comes to digital production. So we're producing new digital production, or sorry, new digital technologies, and there's a lot of differences between that and hardware production. And to me, it seems like one of the biggest difficulties has been our ability to accurately spec out a project, scope a project, build a backlog, build a product roadmap, et cetera, for a digital product, and then estimate, figure out budgets, figure out timelines, all the rest of it. Like, it's very difficult because digital stuff just by its nature is often very difficult. And so my question is this: in your university projects, you're doing very complicated work as well. There's some impetus on you to set your own timeline and to build, your master's roadmap. But then also at the same time, not only are you dealing with complicating stuff, but you're literally generating new knowledge. Do you find it difficult to spec stuff out and scope it, roadmap it, figure out, how the project's going to run when it's like we're literally talking about stuff that nobody knows yet?
So I want to add on to the two, and that will probably might answer your question as well. When we talk about deadlines, we talk about one thing. We have an end date, and then what happens between now and that end date is up to you, right? So if you want to make it easier in your life, plan it out now and plan it out so that you do it to complete specific steps. And in research, it's so volatile. I don't know if that's the right word, but it's like the timing is so weird because you don't know. You're collaborating with other universities. You're collaborating with hospitals, older adults. You don't know if you're going to get those 40 participants in one go. Some and then you don't know if the device is going to work during that session during the same time, and then you have to leave out the data, and then now you have 2 weeks. You have to add another 2 weeks to find new participants in order to work. And I'm all three of us probably have had that issue.
Oh gosh, yeah.
So like when we say 40, sorry.
I was just gonna say, if you think like product demos are hard, it's like you guys are like running a product demo that's for the product that you need to get the information from before you can even get to a real product demo.
Yeah. So in reality, in the industry, everything's already spec'd out and estimated and everything for you when you first start. We're talking about transitioning here. You're not at a high level position to start working or anything to start creating already. You're working on products that already have started, and unless you are the founder of a startup, you are working on something that's already been established, and you're just working on to improving it. In research, you start from ground zero. You start from an idea, right? My biggest example would be I started off with the entire neonatal resuscitation procedure, and then I had to slowly narrow it down to, like, there's 8 chapters in this giant textbook, and then I had to narrow it down to 1 chapter, and then I had to narrow it down to 1 step from that 1 chapter, and that took months.
Wow.
Because you keep failing until you have something that works out. And that's the thing about research, and how often you fail is pretty much how often you tack on time to your end.
Yeah. Well, I'm always blown away when I read one of your related works sections, your related literature. And like, it's a lot for me to read, and then I imagine, oh my gosh, how much must you have all read in order to be able to synthesize that together into a related literature section? It's unbelievable.
I think I agree with Kenny on the timeline that he is saying about like research, the same thing happened to me. Like my device was not working and the problem was not in software part. So I tried to just solve the problem in the software area, but it has nothing to do with the software, but the problem was in the hardware. So I was not a hardware engineer to know why it's not working the way it's not. So I spent like 2 months trying to figure out why it's not working. But if, for example, I gave it to a hardware engineer, he could fix it in like 1 day maybe, because he can understand what's the problem, fix the issue fast. Yeah, I think that's the problem with the deadlines also. Like something comes up, maybe you cannot solve it, maybe you don't have anybody around you to be able to solve it. So that's why I think maybe in the industry, maybe the deadlines are shorter, but at the same time, it's just like the path is obvious. Like nothing will distract you from your main focus. But in research, everything will just distract you. Like nothing is obvious. Like you might, for example, end up studying something for like 7 days, then you realize, oh, it has nothing to do with my research and it's not the solution to my problem. So yeah, I think maybe industry would be easier in that aspect, that everything is obvious for you and everything is working well, and the device that you are working with does not have any issues.
Can you guys share with our audience at home how common it is that you follow an avenue of inquiry only to realize that you've got to back right up and choose a new street?
Quite a lot, like
Really
all the
often.
time. Like for example, if somebody knows how to do research, for example, my research, they can finish it maybe in 1 month. But for me, because I don't know like anything about hardware or people or anything else, or the psychological background. Like for example, you do a research and then you realize, oh, the whole idea that I had based on in psychological aspect had the problem. So I don't get the solution that I wanted. So, or I don't get any solution. So yeah, I think that's like, if some people gather together that they all know about everything, so they can make it like so much easier and finish it quite faster.
So yeah, the difference between industry essentially and maybe academia, or you may say master's project, is that in academia, in an industry where you have already defined scope of the project, you have all the necessary people who have all the necessary skill set. They're pretty much nerved down to the skill set they know. If when you're in your own project, it's like you created your own startup, but you are the only person who makes it all, everything. And so you may go really different directions and then realize, oh, I was going wrong direction. But you learn as you go. You fail and you learn more. While when you are in a corporate business, you are given the task that you know you're good at, and you're gonna just go through it without being distracted on the things that you will have to learn before even going into.
Okay, big question for the topic then. Do you all think that perhaps industry could be improved by incorporating some of the concepts or ways of working from academia and vice versa? Could academia be slightly improved if it were to incorporate, some of the common features of industry?
Time is money.
See, I think
that's my only answer to that.
Yeah. I think that's one way of thinking about things that if academia is thinking about time as money a little bit more, perhaps. Is that what you're saying, Kenny?
No. I'm thinking in the industry side, they're not, they a lot of them, unless they have the money, they're not going to invest the time, right?
Yeah.
So
okay, the other way.
That's like, you see big companies like Google and Microsoft, they have the money, so therefore they have the research and development teams to have that one deadline that they have, and then they work with that research, right? And other technologies that have smaller teams cannot work fast enough to keep up with the research. And that was one of the problems I ran into working on something after my core project. I was helping another colleague in the lab, and we found that the technology was not enough for us to build something out of, so we had to hack our way around it and create something different.
But I guess it's one of the advantages in here, because when you are in academia, you get to learn by mistakes, and you just basically make a sculpture of yourself. Because once you're in an industry, everything is pretty fine, right? But in your research, you have to learn by mistakes a lot. And I guess that's one of the advantages, because you get to fail a lot.
Mm-hmm,
And
mm-hmm.
that's what you have to be creative, how to be the one who creates the whole concept and digs it down to something small. And yeah, I guess it's important to have that too.
Roya, did you have something to share there?
Yeah, Yuri was saying that you have to fail. Yeah, I guess in research you have to get used to failing because you will fail a lot.
But the thing is, to incorporate that type of I guess philosophy. What would that
sounds
word
good
be?
to me.
that sort of workflow into an industrial setting, like our type of workflow into industrial setting, I feel that the product may not, like, it's important to have research, of course, but developing something new may be a little bit, if you're a smaller company, I don't know. Everything that's start with an idea. So
I think
it's like the turtle and egg, the chicken and egg question at this point. So.
I think you're toying with something that leads nicely into what our second topic was going to be, but we're 3 minutes away. So, guys, I'd like to introduce that second topic, and then I'd like to also just request 2 minutes more each of your time from the panel. How do you guys feel about that?
Yeah.
So, for Circle 1, we always get together for a dry run on Wednesdays to try and figure out what these topics we might discuss are or look like. And so we really got into that first one, that transition. I'd love to play with that one more because I think that we just spoke about the first component of that question, which is how difficult the transition is. And then there's the whole second part of the conversation is not only is the transition difficult, but we're in a period of intense transition and you're making a transition. It's like, wow. Wild. So hats off, I think, to you guys both as you look to the end of your grad studies, and Kenny, to you as you enter industry again. So hats off to all of you and all the best. But that second topic that we toyed around with on Wednesday is, I guess, trying to identify the differences between iteration, increased focus, etc. And I guess my proposition is maybe we need to expand our lexicon a little bit. Maybe we need a few more words. I guess the question that I'm hoping to ask you guys is, does the term innovation get bandied about around too liberally, or are we cool? And I guess personally I have a conception of innovation, and I'm sure that all of you have your conceptions of innovation. So if it's okay, I'd like to dog ear that one and invite you all back on the show to speak about innovation. How's that sound?
Yeah.
Sure.
Fantastic. And then the 2 minutes that I'm hoping to eke out here at the very end is something we like to do on Circle 1 is shift gears at the end of the show. And we spend a lot of time talking about career, work, leadership, academia, research. And quite frankly, at the end of a Friday going into the long weekend, I'm kind of hoping to transition my conversations away from such topics. So if all of you would be so kind as to indulge me and the audience members at home, I'd like to learn a little bit more about who each of you is as an individual. Your personality, your roots, where your interests lie. When Friday at 5 p.m. on the long weekend hits, where does your mind turn? Let's learn a little bit more about you guys outside of work and outside of academia. And if it's okay, I'll turn this one to Roya first. Roya, would you mind starting us off?
Yeah, so I quite enjoy like different activities and like, for example, a wide variety of things, learning new skills. But mostly the thing that I do as hobby is like painting and just hanging out with friends and talking, having coffee, conversation about like random things. Yeah, so this is pretty much it. And I'm starting to learn piano, which I really like it. I have no background in music, but I really like to start learn new skills. So yeah, I'm starting to learn piano, and this weekend I will probably practice that.
How long have you been playing piano for?
I'm just starting.
Just starting, okay. Well, yeah. But like just starting.
Well, I played once with a game. Like there was one game, like Kenny's project is about gamification. So I'm learning piano by gamification. So there's a game that teaches you how and when to press each one of the notes. So I think it's really helpful. I learned so fast. I learned just 2-3 notes, but that was quite fast. So
Wow. Very,
yeah, I'm
very
practicing
cool.
that this weekend.
Cool. And then sports, media
Oh,
interest.
well, I have sports. I have black belt in karate.
Oh my gosh! Look out, gentlemen.
Yeah, and I am I used to be a coach back in my country, but since the time I came here, I just do just yoga and some lightweight, just some
Very cool.
not so professional workouts. So
Excellent.
yeah,
Excellent.
and I spent like from the age of when I was 5 years old, I started learning karate, and I was in that environment for my like whole childhood. And then at the age of 18, I got my black belt. No, 16, and then I started going into contests. And yeah,
Holy smokes, Roy! I had no
about it.
idea. By gentlemen also, I meant gentlemen in the lab, and I'll be sure not to cross you next time I'm in the lab.
That's what everyone. I look like a violent person.
No, I had no idea. Very, very cool. Maybe next you'll be on Joe Rogan to talk about your martial arts skills.
Okay, sure.
Alrighty. How about Yurii? We'll pass it over to you. Let's learn a little bit more about Yurii outside of work and school.
Yeah, I have quite multifaceted interests in many things. Yeah, I wouldn't imagine myself without my hobbies and these interests. I have been playing guitar for a long time. I mean, sometimes I just don't, sometimes I do. It depends on how the mood comes and time and muse, I'd say. But yeah, I play guitar, electric, acoustic. I also got interested in piano. I've like for a couple of years. Right now, I don't have access to it, unfortunately, but yeah, I've been playing for a couple of years now, and as well. Also, not recently, already about 1.5 years, Spanish has become my very big interest. That I've been reading, writing, try to speak a little bit in Spanish. Yeah, which is my very important goal to me to accomplish. Also, I have interest in gymnastics and calisthenics, weight exercise, body weight exercises. These are my main interests, I'd say. And then and the last one I'd say, which is more tailored to programming, is embedded systems and embedded system programming that I'm quite interested in. It includes system programming such as low-level operating system, making drivers, and as well as working with the Raspberry Pi boards, programming something at level, or even looking at PCB and all those components. How do you code on bare metal? Yeah, this is my main interest.
Wow. Well, it's That's it. That's
right
always.
Now I do not draw. I don't draw, but I used to draw a lot. And I finished art school. I had drawn for my whole life.
Very cool.
It's been portraits a lot, mostly, but now I just stopped a bit because I don't have the inspiration.
Very cool.
I love to draw too.
We've seen a few of Yuri's drawings. He's very talented, and it just made me think when you were talking about your systems interests. We've collaborated so much academically speaking, Yuri. It would be fun to maybe consider maybe some professional academic collaboration, professional collaboration. But hey, I mean, we're supposed to be talking about more relaxed things here at the end, and so thank you, Yurii. I'll turn it over to Kenny, and yeah, we'd love to learn a little bit more about Kenny the human as we wind things down. Kenny.
Yeah, so my interests change almost every year, to be honest with you. Recently, I've as you can see on the back here, I was something called a GitHub Campus Experts. They pretty much let me. It's a program that lets you help educate students in any form of technology that you want to deliver presentations on, essentially. Oh. And then start communities, and it's I love starting and maintaining community and then passing the community on. That's what I've been doing for all my university life. But besides that, I sang in a choir, I guess.
Oh.
And Prairie Voices, check them out. They're pretty cool.
Cool.
And I've been out with them for 6 years. And hopefully the season restarts next year. Because we can't sing right now, but we've done a lot of virtual choir stuff, and you can check some of the videos on there.
How does that work?
So we have a conductor that conducts on a silent track or a piano track, and then each individual in the choir sends in their individual part, and then it gets edited into one video, and it's just like a multi-track a cappella video, and it sounds, it's layered. And
there's some of those on the channel?
There's some of those on the Prairie Voices channel on YouTube.
Amazing. And are we going to see you? Will it show video of you?
I'm in every one of them so far, so
nice.
that's a pretty fun thing. So yeah, if you're interested, that's one thing. And then on the other side, I do a little bit of streaming every once in a while as well. So as you mentioned earlier.
Awesome. Well, that's so cool to hear. I think I definitely learned something new about each of you today, and I hope our audience learned some interesting things about these fantastic humans that have joined us for the show today.
You are too kind.
Oh, well, I loved having you guys. It's been fantastic. I do just want to make one quick shout out before we close the show, and that is to Ahmed Sharif. Any suggestion for how to organize the process of research, in the sense that how to set goals, timelines for research projects, I think, is difficult sometimes. So, I think we spoke quite a bit to that, but it seems like something that I'd suggest is worthy of further discussion, and hopefully we can get you guys back on the show in future and explore that a bit more. But we are rounding out on an hour, and you guys have been very gracious with lending me a few extra moments of your time for putting up with the technical difficulties. And wow, has it ever been interesting and enlightening. And so, to wrap things off, I'd like to say thank you very much to all of our panelists. I'd like to say thank you very much to all of our viewers. And of course, I'd like to say thank you very much to all of those who are working on behalf of us all here at home on the front lines. Hats off to all of you, and especially hats off to, I think all three of you have research projects that have medical implications and could definitely make medicine a better place for many people in the future. So I just think it gives me goosebumps to learn about what you guys are working on day to day, and to know that is one of the driving forces behind pushing forward progress and making life better for people all around the world. So massive kudos to you. Thanks for joining us on this week's episode of Circle One. It's been a blast. I think there's a bunch of stuff down there below. You probably know what to do with those buttons if you've enjoyed the episode, and we very much look forward to joining you on next week's episode of Circle One. Thank you all.
Thank you so much, John, too,
Thank you.
for this great opportunity.
Guys.
Take care.